morning, everyone. Welcome to the first Business and Market Day here in Nigeria and in many other jurisdictions around the world. This is your Business Morning with me, Bosi Mafa. It's good to have everyone back to business. This is our Back to Business briefing this Wednesday, the 2nd of January 2019. Broad economic business and markets are reopening today after a long holidays of a turbulent global marketplace of 2018. About $5 trillion were wiped out financial markets in the last year. So that's where we're starting the brand new year. Meantime, financial derivatives company's Chief Executive Officer Bismarck Rewani told Channels Television on New Year's Day that he believes that the coast is now clear for telco's giant MTN to float the long-awaited Nigeria unit IPO. The figure we had on the street throughout last year was around 400 to 500 million US dollars. That initial public offering and the possible listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Bismarck Rewani believes that that will come through in the new year. Mr. Rewani also sees political jostlings and February elections beclouding the first Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the Central Bank later this month and talks about minimum wage as well as Budget 2019 discussion by the legislature. Of course, we're looking at all those issues put together. The first Monetary Policy Committee meeting is yet. We are yet to have that on our calendar. Meantime, all eyes are on President Muhammadu Buhari to inaugurate the technical committee he spoke about during his budget presentation the first week of December to the National Assembly to determine the new higher minimum wage. It was 30,000 naira that was discussed and presented in that tripartite committee report, which was presented to the president, which he says he will study and report back. Of course, he did report back on the floor of the National Assembly when he says that the new committee will be set up to decide what the new minimum wage will look like, the funding options for the government. The president was emphatic there will be no borrowings, whether local or outside the country, to fund the new minimum wage and avoid a fiscal crisis that a higher minimum wage will bring, and of course, the likely inflationary impact. What are some of the things we're watching for you in the new year? And you should also focus on the power sector transition market performance is due for review. It was 5 years ago, November 2013, that the Jonathan's administration did the first major power sector privatization of the GENCOs and the DISCOs. Now, 5 years after, the current administration says it's going to revisit that 5-year program, which now formally brings to an end that relationship between those initial investors and the Nigerian government under the BPE. That sector is, however, yet to resolve a number of very tenuous issues. For example, the cost-reflective tariffs that businesses and residentials will pay, the ministry supply, and how to avoid estimated or what some folks call crazy billings by DISCOs, including new investments that have been very scarce in coming into the electricity transition market, and the banks, some banks, has gotten their fingers burnt in those investments in the power sector. All of that will be coming into sharp focus in the new year. Meantime, we're expecting the Nigerian Stock Exchange to hit the ground running on the Oscar Onyema on the ongoing public demutualization exercise that the Stock Exchange embarked on in recent years. The Stock Exchange now has in its back pocket the enabling law that will enable the exchange to become what we call a demutualized exchange, ending 6 decades of being a mutual stock exchange. Under the new arrangement, the stock exchange is expected to carry out the demutualization or going public in phases, and that means the exchange will eventually have new shareholders, which will be private investors. That will mean reissuing new shares at some point, including the listing of those new shares on the Nigerian Stock Exchange itself. How all that will work out, we'll revisit this as one of the big stories on our market street for the new year, but it's going to be a game changer for the nearly 60-year-old Nigerian Stock Exchange. Meantime, it's countdown to Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele's final months of first 5 years on the saddle as the Central Bank Governor. His tenure formally ends in the first week of June 2019. Godwin Emefiele navigated Nigeria's economy through the brutal foreign exchange years of 2015 and 2016. It then moved on to clear up billions of dollars in arrears, if you remember very well. Of course, history is not too long ago, and helps refocus local industrial production via the FX ban on 41 items and stabilizes Naira-dollar exchange rate. Now, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, we're also looking to see the listing of the enlarged shares of listed cement maker CCNN PLC, that's the cement company of northern Nigeria, after the facility went into a business combination with the Boa Group Kalambayina Cement Company. That's the story we had for you in the final days of 2018. We're expecting the listing of those shares on the exchange as early as this week, because they've gotten the clearance of the SEC, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, of course, and the shareholders of BOA and CCNN to go for that business combination. Meantime, we don't have any fresh calendar yet on our economic data releases for January this year by the Bureau of Statistics. We expect all of that to start coming through from today. Also be on the lookout for the Central Bank of Nigeria's MPC meetings calendar for the new year, but we expect the first meeting in the new year. Of course, we have a full MPC body on ground. That should be coming through in about 3 weeks from now, of course, after inflation we expect. And, of course, the DMO Naira bond auctions for the first quarter of this year as well. So all of that are what we have on our calendar, the first Back to Business briefing. Let's get a bit of a briefing of the marketplace with Temple Ashaju, who is a business correspondent live to us from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Temple, this is our first business day and markets day together for the year. Thank you very much for coming through. What do you think we should be looking out for in our news box for our market street as we start a new month and a new year, formally speaking?
Well, a whole lot of things, Bosun. First of all, Happy New Year to you, and good to join you again live from here. But then, 2019, there's a whole lot that investors will be watching out for. A whole lot of economic data will be expected. Inflation report for last month will be on the watch. A whole lot of investors will be watching out for that. In terms of the markets now, we will be watching out for the Q1 earnings, FY earnings, FY 2018 earnings rather, for a lot of the companies to see how they performed and to see which is actually going to be declaring dividends and all that. Investors will also want to know what sort of dates people are going to be looking out for in terms of annual general meetings, and to see how they can key into all of that. There's a whole lot of thing again regarding the close period that Access Bank has now announced for its dividends declaration, and of course the conclusion of all of its FY 2018 report. And you know that company is also talking about the mergers between it and Diamond Bank. The rights issue is for 1st of February, which is next month. And a whole lot of things, basically, numbers, data regarding markets, AGM dates. Those are things, basically, that investors are going to be looking out for. January effect is also something one will always want to watch in the market, because you know how it is in terms of meeting the demands. The dawn after the festivity period comes with a whole lot of sell down in the market. Investors want to quickly pay school fees. Retail investors here now want to do some rebalancing of their portfolio. Bosun.
For everyone to think through and put through this morning, of course, we're looking through the news box, what we are looking at. This is coming through from the stock exchange. Temple Diamond Bank PLC has been kicked out of the NSE Corporate Governance Index. That's the story this morning. This was posted on the website of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, December the 31st. It's just about 48 hours or so. In the news, according to the Central Bank, to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the investing public has been informed that 3 companies, NEM Insurance PLC, Continental Reinsurance, and Diamond Bank, have been removed from the NES Nigerian Stock Exchange Corporate Governance Index effective 1st of January 2019. That was yesterday. Of course, that's effective today. So those 3 companies are out of the Corporate Governance Index of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Bosun, Temple, what is this, what you call Corporate Governance Index? What is it really?
So, well, it's something that just speaks to companies that have a good corporate governance system or structure in their companies. For Diamond Bank, for example, the fact that it's been kicked out in recent time is simply as a result of preparatory grounds to the mergers and acquisition between the bank and, of course, Access Bank. Remember, too, that over the weekend or before the new year, we got the press statement from Access Bank talking about the possibility of customers of Diamond Bank now being able to use their ATM cards, of course, on the machines of Access Bank. That gives them access to over 3,000 ATMs nationwide for Diamond Bank and, of course, Access Bank customers to be able to. So these are just preparatory grants in this regard for Diamond Bank's acquisition by Access Bank. That's for that. We know that NEM Insurance was fined sometimes in Q4 2018 regarding some kind of irregularities around the location of its annual general meeting. The stock exchange fines that company for that purpose, and it had to meet that particular obligation because it was taking the AGM away from Lagos, and we understand that some investors weren't really carried along. And a lot of time when such things take place, it looks like some shady deals are about to be found on the resolution for a few shareholders that would have made the venue and time, of course, location known to a few shareholders. So this is one of the reasons that we were able to see all of that. Corporate governance is something really key that the Nigerian Stock Exchange in recent time, as a result of its transparency drive, has been taken very, very seriously. And if this is taking place at this point in time for these two key companies, that will be the reason.
Temple, some of the things we also know that the stock exchange is explaining as far as those three companies are concerned. And, of course, you just touched on NEM Insurance. Of course, the stock exchange says it has to do with the suspension of the CRGS rating of the company. That was in November. Yes, of course, that went in there. Continental Reinsurance, according to the stock exchange, has filed an application to delist from the daily official list of the exchange. Of course, we know that the bigger company, the majority shareholders, last year announced the buyout of all the outstanding shares of Continental Reinsurance. But speaking again to Diamond Bank, the stock exchange says that the removal of Diamond Bank PLC from the corporate governance index rating of the stock exchange was because of the recent governance issues with Diamond Bank. So the index committee decided to remove the bank, Diamond Bank, from the NSE CG index. So this, I guess, speaks more to not about the merger, but because Diamond Bank has got governance issues. Remember, and this is already in public space, public domain, all those boardroom, those resignations in Diamond Bank before around the time of the merger rumor with Access Bank and all of that, and then an acting chairman was put in a few weeks ago, even though there are no independent directors of that bank in place, and the other directors just brought in a new chairman. So I guess these are part of the issues the stock exchange is considering ahead of that merger.
I agree with you, both, and I agree with you totally, especially on Diamond Bank regarding the resignation of all of those independent directors and, of course, the appointment of an acting chairman at this point in time. But you know that over the years, Diamond Bank was also one of the companies that really complied with these corporate governance rating indices of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the demands of that indices, basically. And that was one of the key reasons why it was able to get to that particular until lately, when these issues that you mentioned actually surfaced on the company. We know that the exponent or the founder of that company, Dr. Pascal Dozier, is a member of the Corporate Governance Society of Nigeria here and has been speaking extensively on issues of corporate governance, talking to other companies to see how they can adopt that. So, save for these issues, issues of shares, concerns that some shareholders had in late last year, that's Q4 2018, we probably wouldn't have had this particular issue. But then going forward, given the fact that the acquisition is taking place, they need the stock exchange, which is a regulator, quasi-regulator here now, needs to quickly dot the I's and cross the T's for this particular company and let it move on.
Okay, at Tempo, we'll have a lot to talk about later in the program. Thank you very much. Stand by for us at the Stock Exchange for our first trading day. We'll look at the first opening bell in about 30 minutes from now. Stick around, everyone. We'll be right back with your lift-off macroeconomic for the new year.